Welcome back to the 12th man. Delighted to be joined by top Maiden City coach Kevin Caruana, current under 18s coach and future men's coach. I've no doubt about it. He's in the building. It's been hard work getting him on. His stock is very, very high. But Kevin, absolutely delighted to have you in. He's a big Liverpool fan, but also a big football fan, and we've got plenty to discuss tonight. We're going to be looking at Man City. Can this be the season they finally won the Champions League, or possibly even go and do the unthinkable, which is a quadruple? We're going to be looking at Liverpool's recent form and just the season in general. Is it down to injuries, or is there something more? We're going to be looking at Spurs. A lot of criticism of Mourinho recently, but as soon as he opens up, Spurs concede 5 and they lose a game 5-4. Rio Ferdinand's been saying that he feels sorry for Mourinho because a lot of mistakes are in the individual errors, and we're going to be asking Kevin, a well-experienced coach, of what he can do in general when there's a lot of individual errors going on. Is it something a coach can improve on, or is it just out of his control? And we're also going to be looking at the rest of the weekend's games where Leicester and Liverpool clash in a top 4 battle. We're also going to be looking at Man City against Spurs and the rest of the weekend's games. So, Kevin, once again, just delighted to have you in.
Thanks, Gary, for having me on. That big introduction. I'm under P here now, so.
I know. Here,
thanks for having me.
See, before we start, about the Premier League and stuff, I just want to share your screen here. Obviously, yes. Me and Kevin being coaches, this is something that's going around at the moment. It's a big area of concern. I know me and Kevin have been speaking about it off camera, but kids football at the minute, not football, sport in general is not been happening. We're on their 3rd month now for this lockdown. No real sign of coming back soon, and we've got some big names have signed this sort of petition to get a bit more awareness about it and hopefully get kids back on the sport quicker. Kevin, what's your thoughts on it? Do you think this is a great idea?
Well, it's a brilliant idea. Maybe a wee bit too late now. Do you know what I mean? Well, it's never too late for something like this, but we're in relation to football, Gary. You know, we relate to that a wee bit more, but I think it's for all kids. Do you know what I mean? Multi-sporting, whatever it may be, it's an important topic. I know I work closely with 16, 17-year-olds at the minute, and it was a worrying time for me because I was thinking, right, these boys could drift into bad habits. You know what I mean? So every coach for every sport will have a different scenario, you know, from what age group they're coaching or whatever it may be. But, you know, we need to get this shared around if we can. So if anybody's on the podcast hasn't shared it, get it round because it can only help matters. You know, you see like Owen Kearney and Gary Hamilton, people like that. You know,
you just see on
big football people in the country. So if they're at the forefront of it, it could be a good sign. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's good that people are speaking about this, but I think when we talk about, obviously, we know the effects of physical health, kids not getting exercise, but one thing that's going on the radar a lot is mental health. Mental health a lot discussed in adults a lot, and as you say, maybe teenagers, not so much young kids. I think as Gary Hamilton says here about being stuck. He's a professional football coach. Children been stuck in front of screens all day. The weather's not great. You know, so
well,
do you think this is an area? Go ahead, sorry, Kim.
So Gary can relate to it, you know, very well because he's got 2 young boys who are obviously used to being out the door 2-3 times a week to football. Now that's been taken away from them. So the kids are probably constantly at him about when are we going back. You know, him trying to drag him away from Xboxes, something maybe he never had to do before. Do you know what I mean? Which can then cause tension between him and his kids at the house because, you know, what is the answer? Like, you know, do you take them away from the Xboxes? Do you allow them to neglect something like that? You know, it's a difficult balancing act, but hopefully we can get something sorted. Like, do you know what I mean?
As I was saying, I just think it is something that's going on the radar as kids and mental health. Everyone's fine about the physical side. The mental health's obviously huge as well. So as Kevin was saying there, anyone that is watching, that article is available on BBC Sport, BBC News NI or BBC Sport. Go on, get a quick read, we share. The more awareness we get about it, the hopefully the quicker we can get back. Even if it's not something that you do, kids sport, just even share it for everyone else. I'm sure you know people that are coaches, have kids that take part in football. Everyone's going to know somebody, so it is like a massive effect on everyone. So the more people we get out there, the quicker we have a chance of getting back. And me and Kevin's mental health as well has been suffering. So.
Forget about the players. What about the coaches?
I know. And I don't know, mental health with even worse if the Premier League wasn't on. I know you're a suffering Liverpool fan at the minute, but it is good to have someone to watch. But obviously, he's a big game last week. against Man City, and it was a huge game in terms of the title. Man City won that game, and I think it's the first time now you've heard talk about the quadruple and stuff, because it's getting to that stage of the season where they won the FA Cup again in midweek, so they're under the quarter final of the FA Cup. They'll play Everton away, no easy game. But you look at that, the teams that are left knocked out of it, they're City are well favourites. They won that competition. They've obviously got the League Cup final coming up against Spurs. They'll be favourites. They won that, a competition that they've won 3 or 4 times over the last few seasons. The Champions League is going to be the monkey off their back. They've had a few issues in that, but Borussia Mönchengladbach's a favourable tie. And you look around Europe, that the teams aren't playing that well. I'm sure Bayern Munich will be a team that they've got their eye on, and Liverpool will not when they play Liverpool, I don't think, over 2 legs. The fact they've got that pedigree, but City will be considered one of the favourites. And the way the league's going at the minute, if they were to go on, if they keep this run going, they could have the Premier League going in the next month, and then they can focus on the cup. So, do you think this is their best opportunity over the last 3 or 4 years? They maybe go on them 4 competitions in the same season?
Well, can they win the 4 competitions? Is yes, 100%. There's no doubt about that. There's nobody can argue with the fact that they can win every competition that they're in. Will they win every competition? It will be a big ask. Yeah. I think squad depth has played a massive part in them this year. You know, regardless of what players have went out, you just see equal quality, if not better, coming back in. And whenever you're going for 3 or 4 cups a year, then that's exactly what you need. Do you know what I mean? If you want to be at the top and stay at the top, you have to have strength and depth. But in regards to your question, can they win the quadruple? Yes. Do you think that they'll win it? No.
See, obviously you've been coaching a lot longer than I have, and you coach at a level where squad rotation is important. If you've got congested fixtures dealing with, you're almost like many adults. So, and obviously you've been working closely with the Maiden City first team, so you've got a lot of experience in that area. So obviously Pep's a vastly experienced coach as well, and he'll know the challenges facing the squad coming up. But how, if I was putting you in Pep's position now, right, and you've got all these games and competitions, where do you prioritize, and how do you if he's, I'm not sure if he has got looking at 4 competitions, but you know what he's like, he likes to win everything he's in. So how do you prioritize, or do you just always think about the next game, or as a coach are you thinking 3 or 4 games ahead? How would you go about it if you were Pep now?
Well, to be honest, it's everybody will say it, but it is next game. You know, step by step. Don't look too far ahead. You know, play players that you feel that can get you through games. You know, like what I'm talking at the start about squad depth. That's massive when it comes to City, because like whenever they're playing Everton, you can guarantee that there'll be a bit of rotation on there. It'll be a difficult game, but again, the players coming on to rotate will be looking to prove a point and are good enough to beat Everton. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anything can happen on a one-off tie. We know that. But it's next game. Get ready for the next one all the time. You seen Pep talk about it in a recent interview there. You know, about give him a trophy now. Sure, everybody's saying the league's done. Do you know what I mean? But it's not the case. It's just the next game. Give me the next one. And they're relentless at the minute. What is it? 18 games in a row, or
I think it's 15 ones in a row, 18 unbeaten, or something like that. They haven't lost a game in the league since they lost to Spurs. They actually play Spurs this weekend.
One of your good results there, guy.
One of our only good results this season. But I think you made a great point there about the squad rotation, and it's something that I looked at with Pep this year. He always seems to get it right. As you say, he can make changes. I know he's got a strong squad, but he always seems to get the balance of the team right. Something that maybe Klopp hasn't done this year. We're going to get into that a bit. But do you think that Pep, he's proven, he's had to answer a lot of questions over the last year about him. There's been a lot of talk about him leaving City. He's obviously seen that contract. There's been a lot of talk about his style, maybe being, I know Mourinho's been accused of being outdated, but people were saying that we're moving away from the tiki-taka style of football. And can Pep change his ways? And I have to say this year, they haven't been as tiki-taka. You've seen the fullbacks been very narrow. Cancelo was playing like a midfielder. It's like Gundogan, they joined the attacks, they played a 4-4-2 in the second half at Anfield. We know recognised striker. Do you think that he's shown his class, and he's shown his ability to be able to change and still find what he's doing when there has been problems there facing him?
100%. For me, Pep, I've loved Pep for the last, 10 years, whatever, as long as I can remember. People talk about him going on the ready-made teams, blah, blah, blah. For me, that's nonsense.
Yeah,
you earn the right to go into these teams. You know what I mean? Definitely. And they get swapped on another big team, then you have to be doing something right at that team that you're in at the minute. you know what I mean? In terms of, is he getting it right with the rotation and stuff like that? The spine of his team has been strong right throughout. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So it could be changing people and rotating, but it's in areas of the pitch where you can afford to do it. Do you know what I mean? Off the sides, your fullbacks can change from time to time. But for the mainstay of this run that they've been on at the minute, you've had your keeper, you've had your two centre backs, you've had your holding midfielder and Rodri or Fernandinho, whoever it may be, mostly Rodri, obviously. And then see the boys in front of you. Once you have that spine, other boys coming in it's made for them. Do you know what I mean? For me, he's showing his class at the minute because, people did write him off, as you say. They were questioning certain things about him, and then he just comes back and he could possibly win 4 trophies like we're talking about. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of the things that people associate with Pep is his tactical side of the game. I think one thing you have to give him credit this year on is his man management. Everyone thought Stones was finished, right? He's brought Stones back in. He's been key in this run, playing with Ruben Dias. I know Ruben Dias has come in and almost a strong leader at the back, can improve everyone else. But he's dropped Walker out. Walker's been one of the best right backs in England over the last few years. He's been dropped out for Cancelo. He's had put a lot of faith in Zinchenko. Gundogan's, no one would ever associate a Gundogan playing in that number 10 role, scoring goals, arriving lit in the box. That is down to pure coaching and man management. And he's found he's De Bruyne has been out injured. No one talking about De Bruyne at the minute because City are still winning games. You see, as soon as Harry came down injured, Spurs lost a couple of games. It was all over the news. No one's really talking about De Bruyne being injured because City are still winning games. And he's a no real striker throughout the season. Jesus and Aguero's been injured. So how much down to man management has he just shown he's the all-round manager for you over these last sort of 4 or 5 months?
100%. Man management, people going about him being out in the pitch and getting, at his players 1v. Like, he doesn't care about them cameras. People say that's for the camera, blah blah blah. He's got a point in his head which he feels is vital, and at that time he doesn't want it to go out of his head without him knowing. Do you know what I mean? They do them things. Like, who wouldn't want to play for a manager like that? Attention to detail, passionate, never ever criticizes anybody on camera. But obviously, whenever you look at the show that was on Amazon, behind closed doors, they'll give you an honest opinion. Like, you talked about the likes of Stones, Cancelo, Gundogan, all these players have felt a cold shoulder. Now, it's a combination of not just Pep, but also the character of the player as well, about coming through those negatives. And we always try and teach all of us at Maiden City about whenever you fail, that's when you start to learn. And the players who learn from the failures, you can see that they're strong and they become top players. Like, Stones had a difficult 2-3 seasons where he was constantly watching on. And then I would say a combination of talks with Pep on the training field, showing Guardiola that he can do it, getting his opportunity and taking it. He's now flourishing. Do you know what I mean? Cancelo had a difficult period at the start. He was left out. Walker was playing ahead of him. Anytime he got a chance, he didn't really take it. Do you know what I mean? But he kept plugging away. He wanted to be in the team. And now Pep's getting the fruits of them rewards. It's great to see.
One area or one sort of player that's been criticised, especially by the English media over the last sort of year or so, has been around Phil Foden. A lot of the English media think he's been holding him back. He's not been giving him a fair chance. And the English media, when they have when they get their teeth in this on, they rarely let it go. And people's been saying, our parts of it, I think sort of Spanish experts have been saying he did this with players in Barcelona as well, where he groomed them and then he didn't throw them on too early, because I think he spoke about it at the Liverpool game. As good as Foden played, he still thought tactically he's not ready to play in the middle. That's why he has him out wide. So do you think, I know if you say it down to the player as well, but do you think a lot of Foden's progress is down to Pep, and he should get massive credit for sticking by what he believes instead of maybe worrying about what the English media think?
Firstly, you have to have the ability, right? That's number one. You have to have that ability to be talked about, and the ilk that Foden is talked about, and rightly so. But in terms of management and how the player has coped, see, without Pep Guardiola, he'll not become the player that he will become, because of how he's been dealt with, because of how Pep shot down the media time after time, because he kept leaving them out, leaving them hungry. And if Foden can realise what's being done for him, and again come through that difficult patch where he's being left out and he's playing wee bit parts here, then again you see the reward. It's a no-brainer. I think Pep Guardiola could potentially bring Foden one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really do believe that. And it's down to how he's managed them. Foden has to buy into it as well, Gary, because players can very easily say, well, no, know what? Any other club will want to have me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no other manager will take the care and the detail and understanding of putting them on when he should go on. And, whenever he's performing well, come out on media and tell him, whoa, wait there a minute. He's had a good performance here, but he's got so much more to learn. Do you know what I mean? So I think Pep's the genius, to be honest. He's top drawer, and them City players are very lucky to have him.
I think Foden as well. I watched his interview after the Liverpool game. He does seem like a really good character. I know him and Greenwood got in a bit of bar with England before the start of the season. Greenwood seems to have gone one way, and Foden seems to have really kicked on from that. So I don't know whether that's down to people around him or the individual himself. He realizes he made a mistake. It wasn't that bad what he done. He's a young kid. He's out in Iceland. I'm not going to sit here and slag him off, but he's in that scene where he has to be careful. I think Pep would have probably done something behind closed doors and probably get on to him a bit. And he's really kicked on from that. And as you say, it's easy for Foden to turn around and believe. One thing I was chatting about off camera was about believing the hype, young players. And Foden's certainly not done that. He's certainly listened to Pep, and he probably wants to play in the middle too. And as he's playing out that left side, he's a left footer, which he normally associate now. It's all about cutting inside. So he's improving his game as well. I didn't realise. I was actually chatting to Jamie Noonan on this show about a month or two ago. He was on, and one thing I said to him was I didn't realise until about 6 weeks ago how quick Foden actually is. He's lightning quick as well. Do you know what I mean? That acceleration, he's got everything that you want, and the fact he's getting managed by Pep, it's a scary thought. Just wrote down here, towards the end of the Man City chat, you were saying about the 4 competitions, getting back to it, that it might be too much. Do you think eventually they'll run into problems with injuries and maybe Pep not getting his team right, then maybe one cup game, it could all derail their season? How do you see it? Do you think, and where do you think?
Honestly, I think if there's any team in the world who can do it, it's Man City, and I don't want any City fans out there to be thinking that I'm thinking that they're not good enough. They definitely are, but it takes a lot of. It takes.
Well, it's never been done before, like, so you know.
It's a difficult task. They won all 4 competitions. When you get into one-off games and stuff like that, teams really bring their A game, and all it takes is for City to have a 75% game, somebody to have 100%, and it could knock them out. Do you know what I mean? But look, hey, I'll not be surprised if they do win all 4, and nobody in the world could say they don't deserve it, because they would. But I just don't feel that they will. Do you know what I mean? That's being honest. Like,
where do you think that they're least likely not to win? Do you think a Champions League will be the hardest? Just because that mentality block as well. They've had games where they think about the Lyon game last year. They should have won that tie on paper. Spurs game, they should have won that tie on paper.
Going off history, when they get the latter stages, they do struggle. You know what I mean? So that could be a stumbling block for them. There's that much quality in the Champions League. You get a team on form, or again a 2-legged tie. They, as you said, they'll not want to come to Liverpool. I'm not saying that because I'm a Liverpool fan, but Liverpool in the Champions League, if you have a few centre backs back from injury and stuff like that, could be very difficult.
Liverpool are in a situation now where obviously they'll be looking for the top. We're going to get into Liverpool. I'm not about top 4, but if they were to get City in the Champions League, they would really fancy their chances, I think, because they beat them before in the Champions League, and it's a different sort of game. I don't know why that is, but even when 2 English teams play in the Champions League, it's just different to a Premier League game. I don't know why that is.
That's
just
crazy.
Always feels different, and a lot of the times the underdog seems to turn the favourite over. I don't know why that is either, but just one thing. I don't know if you've seen it this week. Just on the Champions League and the Europa League. Now there's a lot of games getting rescheduled in terms of neutral grounds and stuff. I don't know if you've seen Arsenal's tie where they're playing their away game against Benfica in Rome and their home game in Greece, but the away goals rule still counts. What's your thoughts on
that? Does anything surprise us at the minute? Do you know what I mean? Well, the way of the world, like it's insane. How do they determine where the away goals are? Like,
no. Imagine getting knocked out on away goals at a stadium that's not home to any ground.
I I think that the fact of the matter is that, they have to try and get the fixtures played. You have to appoint a team, a home and away, tie. It's going to be neutral for both. There's no real advantage. So
why
the
not
rules
make
have
it a
to
one-legged? Why not make it a one-legged? That's what I'm thinking. Why not make it a one-legged tie? See if they just said, look, see for the purpose of the COVID now, see from the knockout stages, we're going to make every tie at a neutral ground, one leg. Like it's less games for the players. And if you're going to be playing two neutral grounds anyway, I don't think too many teams will put up a fuss. So that's one thing I spoke about recently on this year. Do you think there's been a lot of common sense going into football? We look at the VAR stuff, all this fixture rescheduling. Do you think if they got proper football people around the table instead of all these accountants and robots, as I call them, it would make far better viewing?
I think every football fan's the same, Gary. We know that if there was more football people making the decisions, then things would run a lot smoother. You know what I mean? But it's money people who are making the decisions, and people who are on these rules, and it's crazy, to be honest. But we could batter on all day talking about common sense, and like for me at the minute, 2020, 2021, it's about trying to get things done. Just you know what I mean? And I think you're right. The common sense, the thing would be they just play the one tie. But being honest now, if you asked a lot of clubs might turn down that. Do you know what I mean? Because they'll feel that they have a better chance over two legs.
I just think maybe, but I just think as well. See with what's going on in the world at the moment, I think it's going to be very difficult for teams. If you've got a last 16 quarterfinal, semi-final, it's going to be very unlikely you're going to get a tie unaffected out of them three. If you get to the final, you're going to play at least a game where you're not going to be at home, you're going to be in a neutral venue. So I think it's something that the clubs, I think, were told in advance. Imagine Liverpool get to the semi-final and they're told that Anfield's not available for the home game. All of a sudden then they're going to be kicking up a fuss. Do you know what I mean? And that's just an example. But I don't know if you watched that, right? I just flicked over last week before the Liverpool Man City game started. I think Wolves are playing Leicester. I wasn't really, and Wales were playing Ireland in the rugby, Six Nations. So I thought, no, I always try and watch the Six Nations when it's on. Not claiming to be a big rugby fan, but I do like watching it as well as the World Cup. But the standard of refereeing was top notch. It really was. See, you hear everything they say, mic'd up, but he actually warns the players before. Say if there's like an off, it can be like offside, or you can be going over the top. There's different kind of fouls, like scrum collapsing. He'll actually warn them before, or say number eight's in danger giving a foul. Say number 8, watch. He'll actually warn them in advance.
Yeah.
The amount of respect in the game between the officials and the players. In fact, you're hearing everything. There's no sort of levels of favoritism towards teams. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. It was unbelievable.
The reason for so much respect is because there's so much communication. You know what I mean? See, when everything's transparent like that, then you know exactly what's happening, and you've been warned and you've been told. There's very, very, very little you can argue about. Do you know what I mean? So it's they're advanced. They Premier League referees though.
Massive, and I think that the good thing about them as well is the referees. They make it all about the players as well. On the occasion of Six Nations, they're not trying to spoil the game or anything. I think the red card Ireland got, you could see desperately the referee didn't want to send him off, but he's done a high tackle and his fist nothing he can do. They've looked at it that many times. You can tell, even what the Welsh commentator said. It's one of them ones you don't want to see the player going off, and he was speaking from a Welsh point of view, but it was just a dangerous tackle and he had to send him off. Whereas if that's in the Premier League, you'd see Mike Dean or somebody flopping about. It's just all
they get excited and card happy, and as if this is a buzz. You know what I mean? But
so we don't want to see big games spoiled, and we don't want to see the game spoiled. And I thought rugby. Any football fans were watching the rugby. I know a lot of football fans just watch it because the Six Nations could have looked at that and went, "Geez, I wish we had that in our game." But getting away sort of on sidetrack, but it was just something I wanted to bring up because it was sort of relevant. But moving on to your team, Kevin, I know you're a massive Liverpool fan. I know you've had a bit of a tough time recently watching them, but I think it's easier in a position where maybe somewhere to Man City last year, where it's just one of them seasons where you're going to be up and down throughout. Just about trying to get through the end of the season now, making sure these are the top 4 next season and stuff. But a lot of people I've been talking to, and you as well, sort of think it's quite unfair sometimes that Liverpool get compared to Man City. 2 great teams, but maybe Liverpool don't have the luxuries that City do in terms of their squad, and I think that's been really emphasised this year. You look at, I know they've had injuries in sort of similar positions in terms of everybody's been injured in the centre half issue, and that's just a freak. It'll never happen again. But do you think, as not just the defence, but the squad in general, even look when Henderson and Fabinho come into the midfield, they look a bit short on there. And then up front as well, when Mane's been out and Firmino's not been scoring, sort of been down to salary, sort of score a lot of goals. So do you think all over the squad's been exposed a bit? Or how do you see it?
Firstly, I want to make it clear that I'm a Klopp and I want him to stay. You know what I mean? That's clear. But if we're going to be honest about things, right? We've reached the pinnacle last year, and it took 30 years to do. And we were at the top of our game, and we were blowing teams away for maybe three and a half seasons.
Yep.
Unbeaten, 68 league games, blah blah blah. I don't know. I'm not on the board. I don't understand the conversations that go on or what's been talked about. But me and a few of my close mates here, Liverpool fans as well, at the time when we reached the top, we were thinking, right, now's the time we got to really reinvest. Got to really reinvest in the squad. Now, we don't know the money situation, but if you've just won the Champions League, you've been in a final a year before, you've won the Premier League, then you wouldn't be thinking money would be too tight. Do you know what I mean? You'd be thinking
that as well, Kevin, in terms of Liverpool, I don't think he's have one of the, I think Arsenal have higher wage bill, Chelsea have a higher wage bill. I don't think these are quite so many Spurs, and he's don't overspend on wages as well.
That's a club policy. You know, we don't go above and beyond, and you know, it's very much value as well. You know, you come on, you play for the shirt, and you know, you're not going to rub the earth out of the club or anything like that, which is proper order.
Yeah, I agree.
But you know, we could have still went and like even the Jota and Thiago signings, they come in very late in the window. You know, they're coming in at the tail end of the window in the summer. You know, and look, Jota was a revelation. Yeah, I mean a revelation. He was exactly what we needed. Put pressure on the top three players. You know, we were actually dropping players out of the top three to play him, because he was doing that well. Do you know what I mean? So that's a shrewd signing, very good signing. Thiago, one of the best midfielders in the world at the time, still is. You know, he still is. People going about slowing play down, blah blah blah. But he actually plays more forward passes than anybody else. Do you know what I mean? It's a rhythm.
I think it's easy to scapegoat players when things are going wrong, and he's obviously come onto the team, and I think they would be struggling anyway, even if Thiago wasn't on there. But I think one thing that I've noticed about Thiago is it's just one of them. He's probably a transition year just to get used to the league. I think the one thing that I find difficult is his age. It's difficult to come to England. A lot of players have done it at that stage of their career. You look at he's coming on these 30. He's going to be coming 30 now. You know, will he be able to sustain that? I don't know what it is about the Champions League. Even there's no game like the Premier League. The pace of the game. I remember watching the Villa Young Boys against Liverpool in the FA Cup, and for as well as they done that last half an hour, they were busted, and it wasn't because they were unfit. It's just because of the pace of the game, and it's probably so on you guys as well. Maybe when you play men's teams, probably just that different kind of game and intensity. It can be a struggle sometimes for young players. So, that you were saying there about Jota coming in, I think it was a fantastic signing. Someone that's going to be at Liverpool for a few years, and no doubt about it, he's going to be a top player.
Great age.
What's that? Sorry.
He's a great age, like you know what I mean.
I think it's one where
so
as
much
well.
Potential.
I think it's one as well where it would have been difficult for him to sustain that. He was scoring a lot of goals, but it would have been interesting over a long period of time. Would he be able to do what Salah and Mane have done before? But before we get into the defence, see the attack. How are you at now with the front three? I've spoke to various Liverpool fans, and I think this is something that Klopp's got as well. You were saying about the summer. I'm sure money might have been Liverpool were going to give him loads of money to spend, but I think it's just something that me and you can relate to as well. As a coach, you do have a lot of loyalty to players that have got you success, and I think it's something that Klopp's probably stuck in the middle of. You might think a few of them players, their best years could be behind them, but it's that loyalty you have to them. You don't want to see them go. They give you everything. It's a ruthless business, isn't it? It's just trying to get the balance right.
It is ruthless, right? But you know, people's talking about their best years being behind them. That front three dominated Europe, England for 3 years. Now, it's no excuse to sit here and say that they're now fatigued and that they've got no energy and blah blah blah. You know, that's not the right excuse. And Liverpool fans who are saying that, but we've dominated for 3 years. That's not good enough, in my opinion. Like, you know, you can't just dominate for 3 years, be happy to win the Champions League and the league, and think, right, our job's done. We can just stop working and
Do you agree with the Roy Keane comments then? Do you think almost like he was saying about they've got to a top now and it's almost as if it's, oh, this is great. Whereas I think his mentality would have been, right, let's go again next year. Do you wish they had more of that about them?
That was my mentality as well, but I've got to be honest, Gary, I think it would have been the players' mentality that we need to go again as well. I really do. I think we're not seeing it, but it's a combination of a lot of things of why we're not seeing it. I do agree with Keenan and a lot of stuff that he said that on that interview. That he's right. There's a lot of players walking about, but are they walking about purposely disrespecting the badge, or is it just the fact that they've got nothing left? They don't feel things are going for them. They don't have the energy to get up and down like they did the previous years. Look, we are in different times, and there is more fixtures, congested and stuff like that. But this is where the squad comes in it, and this is why when we're at the top, we have to really invest right. You know what I mean? We have to get the right personnel, 6 or 7 real top players, so that whenever you're going through periods like this, there's no excuses. Do you know what I mean?
I think I was chatting to Sam McCorkle the other day, and he was obviously been on the show a few times by Liverpool fan. He was saying he looked into it, and he said similar things was happening at Dortmund towards the end, where players were mentally and physically fatigued. Not so much that they were down on tools, because I think they love Klopp, the players. But you looked at that game on Sunday, Liverpool's pressing from the front wasn't there. Salah, Mane, Firmino, they looked really, really tired. And I know a lot. Klopp ask a lot of them, but I think Carragher was spot on when he said too. Liverpool really last year going into the season couldn't really afford the rotate players because of how good Man City were the year before. You look at Shaqiri, I know he's come into the team now. He didn't play a lot last year. Origi's not played a lot since the Champions League final. And my point, and looking at it, should Liverpool really have moved them on if Klopp didn't really fancy them? What was the point in keeping them, picking up squad space if he doesn't really believe in them to come in? Should they have even sold players to try and maybe even get 1 or 2 bit more quality in? What way would you went about it?
100%. I would have sold 6 or 7 players that were there who weren't good enough. Look, they did their time for Liverpool. They did decent. They've made decent impacts for Liverpool, but we need players now who are going to step it up again in terms of can go into the team and play consistently 6 or 7 games, and you know that they're going to give you 8 or 9 out of 10. Shaqiri, quality player, but not consistent. He does it every so often. Origi has scored some massive goals for Liverpool, but he is nowhere near good enough for Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? So
Minamino's been in and out. I'm not sure if he fancies him at all. I think, do you know the one thing I look at with City, right? Guardiola trusts every player he puts on the team. You look at even Bernardo Silva. He might play 2-3 games, and then he might come on for Mahrez, but he's in there on a level where Pep doesn't think the team's going to suffer. I think sometimes if you see Klopp putting in Origi, it's almost out of desperation, and it's because he needs to give somebody a rest, or he's down to the bare bones with injuries. You save me Minamino because he's not really played that much since he's come into the team. You look at who was the other one, the left backs hardly featured at all. He come on the orange for the last 5 months. I don't really think Klopp believes that he can rotate him with Robertson. He doesn't believe he's good enough. Whereas if you see Klopp rotating Cancelo and Walker, it just seems such more of a fluent process in terms of he believes in his squad. You think with Klopp, and that is the difference. And you think with Klopp, he trusts about 13, 14 players, and the other 10 in the squad are literally there to make up the numbers. And that's a problem Liverpool have going forward, isn't it?
Massively. I mean, like you look, and this is what we're talking about City at the start there, about rotation and stuff like that. Cancelo, Walker, top quality right backs. You've got Laporte, Stones, Diaz, now who's been absolutely outstanding. And then you've got the wee boy Garcia, who's looking to go to Barca.
Aki's barely kicked the ball. You've Aki there, he's a top class player.
Aki, he can play left back with Shevchenko, Mendy, strength and depth everywhere you look. We're talking about when Guardiola is rotating, the players coming in are world class players, Gary. Bernardo Silva was unbelievable. He's been a big part player, you're right, this season's came in and out, and but every time he steps in, he does a job. It's a conveyor belt of talent in that group. And look, Guardiola, he's managing the situation well, he's rotating well, and he's doing it at the right times, but he's keeping that spine. And if you've got that spine, you can afford to rotate, especially the players that are coming in are at the ilk, if not better than the players that are on there already. Do you know what I mean? So that's a difference for Liverpool. Liverpool are miles behind that. We have a when everybody's at it and we're fully fit, we have an unbelievable 12, 13 players. but then it stops, and then you're scripting the ball.
I think they pulled up a stat on Monday Night Football last week. Gallagher was on with Chris Coleman. I think Coleman's brilliant. Always really like Coleman. Great pundit, and his
Top
knowledge
class.
of the game. I watched that podcast with Bugsy and Keezy and stuff, but even from that Sunderland Till I Die, he just looks like a proper encyclopedia of football, and he's a breath of fresh air. I'd love to see him on TV a lot more. And what he did with Waves was incredible. But they were on there and they were chatting, and I think they pulled up a stat of the top 10 or 12 the players that have played the most Premier League minutes in the last year. And I think Liverpool had 5 or 6 players on there.
They
So
did
hugely,
five.
And every other team had maybe 1, and I think Man City might have had 2. I think now, looking at the science and you looking at the way the players are playing, I think this is a problem for Liverpool for the rest of the season now. I'm not sure. Maybe the week off this week might help. But I don't know what it is, if it's a psychology thing where the players just need a full summers off. They come back, possibly shift 2 or 3 out and bring 2 or 3 in. I think Gallagher said he thinks he needs at least 3 top class signings, like they did with Alisson, Fabinho, and who was it? I keep forgetting the other one, and Van Dijk. I was thinking of the Premier League and the Champions League the year before, a couple of years before that, they brought on Salah, Mane, and that got them to the top 4. So he thinks they're at that point again where they need 3 top class players. But I think the big issue is getting the ones out as well that are not good enough, because there's no point getting these 3 in. If they get injured or get injuries again, you're going to have the same situation. So how hard now do you think it is for a manager to rebuild from where they are now to where they were maybe 6 months ago?
It's much harder now because it's going to be harder to get players, especially with COVID and how it's working and stuff like that. It's going to be very difficult. That's why I felt when we were at the top, that was our time to strike. You can never imagine that you're going to be missing 3 or 4 top centre backs for the full season. Let's get something straight here. We would be still right up there if we had 2 of our 3 centre backs constantly available, with Henderson, Fabinho going back into the middle, with Thiago, Wijnaldum, whoever it may be, in that middle section, and then Jota, supporting the front 3 players as well. If we had that, we would still. I have no doubt once we get everybody fit, we'll go again. Like, do you know what I mean? But we still need that strength and depth. Do you know what I mean?
I was going to say, see the defensive errors, right, or the defensive injuries, right? That's obviously had an impact as well. We're not going to. I just wanted to get that other stuff on it because I'm always talking about defensive injuries and I wanted to get a different sort of viewpoint. But it is obviously massive. Van Dijk, Mustin's huge for any team in world football.
And see any fan comes on here and says that them injury problems are not a problem, and every team gets them. That's mind blowing.
I think it's one of them where I think teams can cope with injuries, but they have 4. Fabinho's out now this weekend as well. They have 4 players in that area out. It's very, very unlikely that happens. Very, very freakish.
Play the 2 new boys now, but I think throw them out.
One thing I was going to say, right? I wrote it down my sheet today. Do you think that Klopp's overthought it recently with these team selection in terms of persisting that they play Fabinho and Henderson at the back? Almost that he thinks that obviously they're the best, and you have to respect his opinion. He's one of the most top coaches about. I'm a massive fan of him. There's things about him I don't like. I'll get into it in a minute. But in terms of respecting him, he's brilliant. But do you think that putting them 2 in there, he's weakened a massive area of the team in midfield? Do you think he's just slightly overthought it? And hey, it's even though he's a top class manager, every manager makes mistakes. Do you think in hindsight that's something that he might look back on and think maybe should have trusted that lad Phillips a bit more, and maybe threw that young boy in at the weekend, and they signed from Preston or even played Kabak? So what way would you went about it?
For me, he signed 2 centre backs. You get them in, see if they sink or swim. For me, in a transition thing, I know you're talking about bringing the players on the middle and whatever else, but for me, it starts always. Your defense always starts in the attacking areas. And for me, the 3 at the top aren't working like they usually work. Fatigue, whatever it may be, not trusting players behind them. I don't know exactly what it could be, but they're not working. We know that. They're not working as hard as they used to. And then your midfield transition monsters are obviously Fabinho and Henderson. Now they're playing centre-back. You know what I mean? You put them 2 on there, they're going to get the ball back steady. But not only that, they're then transferring the message onto the front 3 players. They go and hunt that ball back and not letting them breathe. You know what I mean? Like, you can hear Henderson throughout games You can imagine if he was on that middle section and Salah, Firmino, or Mane were walking about, he would be absolutely annihilating them. You know what I
think
mean?
he's the
And that's
biggest
what you
loss,
need.
to be honest. I think him not being in there is the leader of the team. It's massive. And I can be quite critical of him sometimes in terms. I think sometimes at the start of the season, he was going back the sort of Henderson we used to know, where he was going too much direct. But he does get the ball quick forward, quick and stuff. And that's been Liverpool's sort of style of play, being direct and getting the ball forward. So
Yeah,
sometimes
right.
the teams have
See
cut.
with Henderson, a lot of people are still fascinated with a Henderson that came to Liverpool to start, and everybody dubbed him to be the next Gerrard, blah, blah, blah. There's no doubt about it. Henderson is Liverpool's most important player.
It's fantastic. I'm a massive fan of him.
The
Thanks
reason,
for
the
two.
reason,
See them 2 seasons. He's won the Champions League, finished second in the league, and won the league. He was up there in terms of the most consistent players in the league. He was up there, like
massively. You just notice whenever he's not in the team, the communication's not there. You know, that aggression's not there. You know, for me, whenever he's not there, I worry because I know that other people might take their foot off the gas. Do you know what I mean? And that's a sign of a good leader. Do you know what I mean? So for me, he's massive for what Liverpool do, and the quicker we get him back in the middle, the better. And I hope tomorrow they go with 2 new centre backs and get him back in the middle.
I think you're going to see this. They're going to have to come on. Yeah, well, I think you might play Phillips with Kabak. I don't think he'll put the young boy Davis on. I think Phillips was a strange one because in the games I've seen him there towards the end, I thought he done really, really well. I think there is problems with his pace. I think that can be where he maybe has concerns, but I think his aerial ability and his reading of the games is pretty good. I think that Williams' confidence is completely gone, so I can see why he's not playing him. But just on Klopp, right? Some of the things I sometimes get annoyed, but every manager does it. I'm used to it with Mourinho now at Spurs, Guardiola, at times at City. It can be quite distasteful towards commentators, towards the interviewers and stuff. I think that's down to pressure though, and you have to let it go over your head. But sometimes a Klopp can make a lot of excuses. I can see why he does it in terms of he's trying to deflect off the team, and it is quite a good tactic because people talk about his interviews more than the team end. But do you think his recent body language, just even on the touchline, watching him, his interviews, that he's feeling the pressure and that he's feeling like it's a difficult job now to get back to where they were, and the fact he's been there so long, we know about manager cycles now. You don't get Ferguson's and Wenger's anymore. In terms of his cycle at Liverpool, it's long, really long compared to everyone else. Do you sort of think that he's sensing this could be the end of it, or
No,
is it just because the team's in a bad moment that he's down?
no. If you've watched, see before this week, I was worried about his interviews, about his body language, stuff like that. But then we know exactly what it is now. His mommy just was dying, just passed away this week.
Oh, so again, that's come out as well. That's obviously
that's a massive burden that he was carrying for the last. It could have been 8 weeks. Do you know what I mean? And he kept that to himself. Do you know what I mean?
She died sometime in January, like, so it has been going on a few weeks now at least.
So if she's passed away in January, that's like she was sick a long time before that too, apparently, and he couldn't go over. They visited. So without hearing that over the last 8 weeks, I was thinking there's something not right with Klopp. You know, his interviews, he doesn't seem himself. He's snappy. He's getting at people. You know, but mentally, what that could do to you is stressful. Like, you know, it's knowing that you can't get over there and support your family in a time of need is a hard thing to do. But combine that with Liverpool struggling, it's not a nice ingredient, you know. So I would have been worried, Gary, only hearing that news this week. But I think once that gets put to bed now, sort of thing, we could start to unleash the shackles a wee bit.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, right, you're Jurgen Klopp now, right? Or even compare us to any situation. Let's say your Maiden City team's lost a few games, and say you've no midweek game, like Liverpool didn't have this week. You've a full week off for the first time, and I don't know how long with the schedule. The Man City game was almost like a rock bottom moment in terms of they were beat 4-1 at home, and the title's gone, sort of thing. So it's almost like a chance they re-gather yourselves and refocus yourselves. Look, we're still in these positions. We can still finish top 4. We're still only 10 points behind City, whereas City were 20 points behind us last year at this stage. So, and we're still on a chance of winning the Champions League. So it would have been a chance to regroup. So what do you think he would have done this week with the players, or say even if you obviously were just speculating, but what would you have done yourself with your players, or what do you think's going to be happening at the training ground this week?
Well, I think I would have talked to the players firstly.
Firstly, Kevin, I want to say as well, this is your chance to give Liverpool fans now a boost of confidence, tell them everything's going to be all right, because we've had a lot of down talk here, so I'm sure this is my chance now to give you boost of morale. And what do you think would have happened?
related to myself, if we have a bad week as a group, then I think whenever you get back on the training, you talk about it briefly. You leave it where it is, and then it's about getting the players up for it again. It's about creating that good buzz and energy back on the training pitch, and trying to carry that on the preparing for your next game. That's how I would approach it anyway. I would say Klopp probably took a similar approach. Like them players in the changing room will know that they've got so much to play for this year. I can guarantee that them players will only be thinking about the Champions League now, really going for the Champions League in terms of top four and really going for the actual competition. And if you're turning up the training every day and you're preparing for a Champions League, and yes, we've lost the league, it's done, it's gone, but
do you think in a way, Kevin, right? Do you think in a way that the league sort of they know now it's gone? It might help a bit that the pressure might be off slightly in terms of, I know there's talk of the top four and they're on a fight for top four, but do you think that they almost able to relax a bit more now and play a bit more football in terms of they're not sort of going to be associated in that title race? How do you see it?
I don't think that the pressure's off because the top four is going to be difficult. You know what I mean? So that pressure's still going to be there. In terms of less pressure of thinking about, we're constantly losing points to City and they're just keep going away and away and away. Yes, that's gone. But now the focus changes to a different type of pressure. It's, there's 8 teams possibly can get on that top four. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to be an easy task here, and we need to dust ourselves down and really, really focus and go again.
I think the week off would have helped. I'm expecting to see a much sharper Liverpool tomorrow.
I hope so.
I think it's a big concern if you don't. I think if you see the same Liver kind of performance, there's going to be a lot of trouble around the corner. But Leicester, I'd be interested to see what way they set up. I know Vardy's there, so how they're going to set up that counter attack on behind. And it's on Liverpool have been vulnerable, and I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will be drumming on them. It's going to be a new centre half partnership. Let's test them out. Balls over the top, a lot of direct play, and it will be a fascinating watch. It's the only game I'm going to see tomorrow. I'm actually working the rest of the day, so I'm actually looking forward to watching that game. But I was saying before, just to wrap up this Liverpool chat, about Salah being the most important of that front three. Do you share that sort of same belief that he's the one they can't afford to lose in the summer after thinking about, because the way they sold Coutinho, they rebuild the team. It's the way Liverpool are, they're quite self-sustaining model. They're probably going to have to sell someone on that front three to bring somebody else on that front three. So who would you move out, and who would you say they can't afford to lose?
To be honest, Gary, Salah's a difficult one for me because, don't get me wrong, his numbers are staggering. They're unbelievable numbers, and he scored some important goals for Liverpool. But 7 out of 10 games I watch, he comes to life in wee moments in the games. Yeah. He comes to life in wee 10, 15-minute spells. For me, that's not good enough. You want them to be aggressive in the transition, really busting his balls to get back, working hard, and then his rewards end should be his goals. Do you know what I mean? But see that picking these moments, 10, 15 minutes in a game. Don't get me wrong, see him 10 or 15 minutes that he picks sometimes, he'll score 1 or 2 goals in that period. You know what I mean? But you look at the chances he misses and stuff as well, and snatches at and things like that. He's a frustrating player, Gary, and you want to love him, but I love players that really bust their balls.
I think it's a big gamble. They replace him, and Mane's not. I don't think Mane's a great player.
Look,
I don't think he's consistent in his numbers as much as Salah's. You look at last season, even then seasons before, he didn't score as many as Salah did. And then Firmino as well, he's not really about goals. And I think that's an area where they're going to have to look at too, about bringing on more goals to the team. So how do you see it?
It's very easy to say that now whenever we're in a very bad moment. All 3 of them have had an average season. We can't forget what them 3 have done over the last 3 years. See if we're doing it after 2 to 3 years and they're still struggling, then there's massive worries. Do you know what I mean? This is a season that we're halfway through at the minute. They've had a not a good season compared to what they're used to doing. Nowhere near it, in fact. Salah's still top goal scorer in the league, which blows my mind. But in terms of the other 2, they're not firing the way they should be. But again, we're not going to just say that we won't rid of them. We have to back them, and we have to say that, believe that they're going to come again. But whether they do or not is a different story. Get Jota back in and see what happens.
Brilliant words. Anybody that's having knee-jerk reactions, just listen to that. Pure patience there. That's what coaching's all about. keeping
You're
patience
right.
when I'm having bad times. But topic 3, your favorite coach, Jose. No, I'm joking. Jose Mourinho chat. No, obviously someone that has took a lot of criticism over the last few weeks about defensive football and let the players go and play, and you'll see a different Spurs. Well, you seen that the other night in the cup where Spurs scored 4 goals. Everyone's going 4 goals, Spurs, no way. But they still lose the cup tie because they conceded 5. So, but if there's ever a game they sum up Spurs, that is it. He scored 4 at Goodison Park and he still go out. I think they'd done like 29 shots, 17 on target. Like, it's really crazy numbers. I think their keeper made 5 or 6 top quality saves. But it was the defensive side that let them down, something that Mourinho prides himself on. And Rio Ferdinand said after the game that he feels sorry for Mourinho. He said that a lot of Spurs, despite the defensive style of play, a lot of the goals Spurs have been conceding this season are defensive errors. Not so much defending as a unit and being breached. It's more of someone doing something silly or an unforced error that's led to a goal. So, do you have sympathy with all this criticism with Mourinho and his style of play?
100%. I love Mourinho. I'll be honest, Gary.
Yeah, I didn't think you were a fan.
No, I really do. I loved him from day dot when he came to Chelsea, full of confidence, arrogance. I believe it.
Felt like yourself when you walked into Maiden City, and that.
No, not at all. But whenever I believe when people are at that level, when they're arrogant like that, they know that they're the top dogs. Like the Ronaldos and Mourinho's, and even Guardiola uses that wee bit of confidence at times and oozes class. Just and look, he has obviously lost his spark over the years in terms of being able to deliver on a regular basis, but I think his quality and how he goes, what he does. And I think now when he went to Spurs, he tried a different approach. He really tried to get on the player's side and, be their friend sort of thing and, see if he can get the best from him. It'll work with some players, it won't work with all, as we can see with Dele Alli and things like that. But in terms of being unlucky on Saturday and over the last few weeks, I do agree with Ferdinand. I think he has been unlucky. I think that individual players have let him down by being cowardly, backing out of things that they should be putting their fist in front of. Lacked quality in terms of being on the ball and stuff like that, just decision making. I even texted you during a game the other night and said, please tell me you don't think Lloris is world class, because I think he shies away. I think he shies away from so much. I think he's
supposed to be the captain of the club, and that the only isn't good enough.
This is a World Cup winning captain we're talking about. Somebody who
I think with Lloris, he was up there maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think I've said before, he was probably having his best season at Spurs for a long time, but the last few games you've seen mistakes coming back in, and he's always been error prone. And you say not being strong enough, and if you're the captain of the club, it's just not good enough. I think the problem that Spurs have with him is it's difficult. There's not a lot of good goalkeepers out there. Trying to replace him is going to be difficult, but it is on that now. I think it has hit rock bottom with him, that he's not going to get any better, and he needs replacing in the summer. But as you say, Kevin, I think, you know what? See, when people criticise Mourinho and say he's outdated and stuff, and I think people can jump on the bandwagon and get on it, and sometimes I'd be like, you know what, they have a point. But see that game the other night, I honestly think that he's seen that coming. I'm going to show them what I'm working with. Let them go out and play, and I still think he wouldn't have seen a 5-4 coming, but he would have been like, you know what, see if I open up here, there's a chance we could get bit heavily, maybe a 3 or 4-0 job, or 3 or 4-1, and everyone will go, well, you can see why he's doing it. But you can see exactly why he's shutting up shop, because that team can't defend transitions. They can't defend simple things like that. That last goal, you've seen about quality on the ball, right? Winks the ball, getting away from him. There was nobody near him. Takes a poor first touch, and you can't even say it's tiredness. He's only come on.
He's only on
minutes before that. Such a lack of, and then to concede, it was so poor. And you look at the first goals, you say that Højbjerg, he has been consistent, to be fair, but taking a poor touch like that, and then the keeper not putting his arms through it. That was the really one with Lloris. Just looked so weak. I think Ferdinand said that's really, really weak goalkeeping. So, as you were saying about Mourinho being unlucky with players down, do you think if them Spurs, even though it isn't the best they watch, do you think if them Spurs players really, really bought into that style of play and they were just doing the simple things properly, Spurs would be a lot closer this year?
Massively. Like, look at the squad Spurs have. It's phenomenal. And the front 3 players, well, front 2 of the 3 are 2 of the best in the world. I would have Sean at Liverpool tomorrow. That's
Mm.
facts. I love him. I love his personality. He's affectionate. The
Yeah,
way he
lovely
goes
guy.
about and carries himself is first class. But in terms of our night, Gary, Spurs shouldn't have lost that game.
No, he dominated that game for large spells, didn't he? And just
It's not. It's
individual
not.
errors.
It's the individual errors, right? So Spurs had a good performance. They scored a lot of goals. See if your keeper's brave and you cut out them mistakes, then you've won the game.
Mm.
And a good style of play. Do you know what I mean?
Kevin,
And everybody.
this was something that I seen with United. I've been chatting with Zach a lot about this year. Is I see a lot of the Poch Spurs and Pochettino and then Solskjaer and United where they get the big games and the crunch games and the individual error. Usually bits like Everton, that Everton game, just defend that free kick. They were far too deep. Maguire didn't take charge. And I was asking him, was it ability or pressure or is it a bit of both? But see these mistakes that are happening in Spurs, they've been happening for 4 or 5 years. Pochettino had the same problem, and that's why when people said, "Oh, Pochettino's not a good manager, he didn't won anything at Spurs," he took Spurs from here to there, from here to the top 16 at best. They had a team that challenged for titles, got to the Champions League final, and more often than not in their big games, it wasn't a poor performance; it was an individual error that beat them. So, how much sympathy do you have with coaches that are dealing with this kind of situation? And it's not always as easy as it looks. They try and fix it. So if you're a coach now and you've got a player, or it's not even just one player at Spurs, it's 4 or 5, 6 players doing it consistently, making individual errors all the time. How do you stop it? How do you fix it? And is there any easy solution to it?
I think it's different processes. Your first step is whenever it happens first, you analyze it, you try and realize what's went wrong, try and give a wee bit of feedback of how it can be prevented in future, and see if that fixes it. Now, if it goes on to a second and a third mistake, then you're then looking at maybe possibly bringing the player out for a couple of games, putting somebody else in to see if that will maybe spur on the player who's sitting on the bench a wee bit. They realize, well, you know what, I have to try and think a wee bit better here, or act a wee bit better because he's going to bring me out. I'm not untouchable.
Yeah.
You will have to try put an arm around shoulders from time to time. You might have to let a roar out from time to time. It all depends on the player, Gary, really, and how they react with being coached.
This is
Everybody's
something
different.
Kevin, right?
Do you know what I
This is
mean?
something I looked at with players, right, as well. I think you make a fantastic point. Do players have the same sort of steel and mentality they used to have, whereas when they get brought into a team or there's an individual mistake and they just don't seem to recover? Like these Spurs players have been, they're experienced players. Dyer, Alderweireld, Sanchez, they've been at Spurs a long time. The goalkeeper. At what point do you just, there's nothing I can do, and how much sympathy should Mourinho be taking the flak for that, and Pochettino? Is that just down to the player not reacting? Like I said, the days of Roy Keane where players made mistakes and they come out of the team, it was always right then, you get back into the team and they work hard and they listen to the coach. Do you think these players now, just some of them, not all of them, have too much of an ego about them, and there's no real, it doesn't even hurt them when they come out of the team? It's almost like, well, they'll put me back in a few weeks' time when somebody else makes a mistake. How do you sort of see it?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. Like for me, when I look at the Spurs dressing room, right, bar Højbjerg, which I think that he would probably be one, and I try and pass on this to my players as well about them and taking control sometimes when things are going wrong. Them and maybe talking to teammates who are trying to flirt about in training or do this and that. Is there somebody in the changing room whenever these boys are making these mistakes? Your Sanchez's, your Dyers, your Alderweireld, whoever it may be, Lloris, who's going on and saying to these boys that boys, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's all right the coach going on and saying it. They could be blue in the face here. Mourinho will talk about this, but it might take 4 or 5 senior players within the dressing room to come and say, well, look, boys, if we're doing the business at the opposite end, we need you to start, putting your body on the line, making saves, putting your head where it hurts. I said, because there's more chance of us winning games if you're keeping clean sheets. Take pride in it, and let your players sort of manage it a wee bit as well. I think that's important.
I think you spoke about Højbjerg as definitely one, because I've been reading things about when he was only at the club a month when Reguilon was joining and he was text messaging and stuff. So obviously good to see someone like him, but we've been missing a player to come for a long time. And I think Kane's possibly the other one, but I think he's seen from the documentary, I think Mourinho called him a silent leader, where he leads by example, but maybe when it comes to dressing rooms, he's not as vocal. But just on him, right? How much of a concern if you're Harry Kane now is this, where players are making the same mistakes every single season? even when you think, oh, Spurs are getting there, but again, you see the same sort of things happening where big cup game, big league game, before Christmas, Spurs are flying top of the league. Look, you sort of had a wee thought thinking, geez, they're really buying in Mourinho here, but same mistakes keep coming back year on, and Kane's not getting any younger. How much? And I have to look at this objectively because I would, I'm not stupid, and I can sense with Kane that he is becoming uneasy, and how much of a concern now for Spurs fans is it that he might think that his future lies elsewhere?
Do you want me to be honest?
Be totally honest.
I think it's a massive concern. Massive. I like anybody that knows or you hear interviews about Harry Kane, and he's got no problem saying that he wants to be successful in one thing. Yep. You know what I mean? So he doesn't come out and say, no matter what, my heart's the Spurs. Do you know what I mean? I think that he's give opportunity for people to see, is this going to turn around? I'll stay again here this time now, but see if they fail and don't win, something very soon, then
this cup final is huge. But you watch that Everton game the other night, right? And I honestly think that's the most damaging defeat of the season in terms of, I know it was only a cup game, but it's the goals they conceded and the way they conceded them. Yeah. They're a team that look nowhere near ready. They look almost like when Mourinho was to come in, was to try and take this team that was challenging. Can they get them over the line? They look further away now. And I think Mourinho has to take his fair share in there, because there has been times you can say about the style of play not been good enough, but in terms of defensively, they look even worse. And I'm not putting that down to him. I think a lot of the same problems are still there when Pochettino was there, and that's the reason they didn't win things. And Spurs could have the perfect game against City. They could really turn up and play well, but you would hang your hat on somebody making a stupid mistake and giving City the one. And that'll be the big issue, that even if Mourinho thinks he gets 89 perfect minutes out of the team, there's still that one element of mistake and one. And as you say, it's not just one player as simple as let's take him out of the team for that game. It's 5 or 6 players. He's going to have to trust them because he's got no other option. So it's a big concern for Spurs fans, and I'm very concerned with Kane. And the fact Son hasn't signed his contract too, they're not the type of characters that's going to come out and look to leave. They're not going to say anything in the press, because I think they have a lot of respect for the club, and as you say, as individuals, they're likable players and likable people. So I think it will be done in a way where it would be done behind closed doors, and it would just be announced they're leaving. But I think it's a very, very nervy time for Spurs fans, and you can hear it in my voice. I'm very nervous. But to summarise, how do you see Spurs? Do you think that squad and that team, even with Kane and Son performing, you need to look at their numbers this year. Their numbers are fantastic. Do you even think if they continue that, Spurs will still fall short of silverware in top 4 this year?
The final's going to be a tricky one. It's an interesting one. The final, I think it's going to be a decent watch. To be honest, I think 2 quality managers, 2 of the best that I've ever loved.
Do you think the fact that I know we can't something, we don't sort of predict how it's going to happen this weekend, but the Spurs' recent results against them, and the fact that Mourinho's bit Pep the 2 times he's been here since the Spurs, that'll come on it. I know they're going to play each other this weekend again, but even if City won that, Spurs will still have a pretty decent record against them. Do you think that'll come on the Pep's head and the City players' heads?
It has to. They'll say that it won't, and they'll say that it's it's a new game, and but that will be in players' minds, and it will be in Pep's mind. There's no 2 ways about that. It's natural. You can't avoid it. But I think City will be ready. They'll be really up for it. You know what I mean? And it's whether the Spurs players come and be up for it. Because if they do come up for it and they turn up, then it's going to be a really good game. So it is. But as you say, it could be tight for 89 minutes. You just always think it's Spurs have a mistake on them. And that's the worrying thing. You know what I mean?
You know what? I think deep down, a lot of these players, well, if they don't know it themselves, the fans know it, and I think the backroom staff know it, and the coaches know it, and whoever is the manager next year, I think the squad really does need shifting. A lot of them players, like Alderweireld, they need to move on. Been here too long, and not done enough to justify staying here. So, do you think that cup, see the players that Spurs want to keep, the likes of Kane, the likes of Son, and the likes of Højbjerg, again, Dombele, players like that, do you think that cup's going to be vital to keeping them here? If they won that, they might say, you know what, that might kick the club on a bit. I know it is only a League Cup, but it almost, I think a lot of the Spurs players are suffering with trauma. The fact they've been there so close so many times, they won on trophies. Almost that trophy could relieve a bit of pressure, and then it might lead to more. I don't know. How do you see it?
I think it's massive, Gary. I think you're still in the Europa League, aren't you?
Yeah.
So I think if you come get over the line in the League Cup, that then puts a mentality into the players. They can think that they can go on and win another cup. Now, I would be very confident if Spurs won. If they won one, there's a good chance that they'll stay. If they won two, you can guarantee that Kane and Son will be there. That would be my opinion. You know what I mean? So they're massive competitions for you this year, them two. You know what I mean? So it's interesting times for you, and one that I would like to be keeping an eye on because I would love Liverpool just to go out for Son, to be honest. But can't see it.
No. I think even Harry Kane as well. I think the thing with Kane, if he wants to stay in England, he wants to beat Shearer's record. He really does. I think he's got his eye on that. He loves the English game. I think it really suits him.
United, I could see a United or somebody.
He's young kids. I don't think he wants to move out of England. So I think if he did want to move, City, United, Liverpool are going to be. But the thing about United is, I think the thing with Kane,
Liverpool would never be able to afford him, Gary.
I think the thing with Kane, right? He wants to. It's not just about the league, winning League Cups, FA Cups. He wants to win the league and the Champions League. And I don't think going to United guarantees that. The fact, there's too much uncertainty around. So you don't know who's going to be the manager next year. You don't know where they'll pull the plug on Solskjaer. You look at the two most settled clubs in England, that's City and Liverpool. You talk about Liverpool maybe not being able to afford him. City are obviously admirers of him. Pep talks about him quite a lot. There's been rumours they're going to come on from the summer. But then there's more recent rumours that they're going to go for Haaland. And you look at Haaland, he's a younger option. He's positive. But you look at Haaland, they might look at Haaland as a better business deal in terms of his age. Kane's 27. His injury record's not the best. Is it a big rusty gamble? Maybe 150 million on him? I don't know. So that'll be interesting in the summer. I really fear for us this summer. I think it could be it's the first summer where I thought that Kane might leave. I've always been confident. People always go, oh, Kane or Poch. Even when Poch was getting linked with teams, I was always confident they would stay. I think this is the first time now about maybe our best players leaving, but it's something that we'll look at in the summer, Kevin. Something we're going to look at now, more recent or coming up, is the predictions for the weekend. Start off with a cracker tomorrow. Leicester against Liverpool. How do you see it going?
Be tight. I'll say that wee lad James Justin, who signed from Luton to Leicester, ACL, so he did. So that's a big blow for them. He looks a top player.
Really I've never seen it. You know what? I've never seen a right footer play so comfortable at left back as he does. I don't know what it is. He just
good sign that. Good sign that.
So what do you think? Score prediction?
2-1 Liverpool. Just script it.
2-1 Liverpool. This is very hard to call. It all depends on that defense Liverpool, how they turn up and how they perform. It's really edgy.
Hey, talk about a baptism of fire for them centre backs if they play Vardy tomorrow. Do you know what I mean?
That's the thing. They've never played against Vardy, and I'm sure Klopp.
But hey, that's what you have to throw them in, Gary.
No. Klopp can show them all the videos they get in the world, but until you're on that pitch, it really is. So I think this could be an entertaining game. I think Leicester they'll make it difficult in terms of they'll play with a low block, but not a low block will not have any get out. They'll play a lot of over top balls and really end to end stretch it. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Hopefully a good game for the neutral. Crystal Palace against Burnley might be slightly more boring than that game. How do you see that going?
I'll say 1-0 Palace.
I'm going to go with the same. Palace seem to have a knack of winning these games at home against these type of teams. The only thing is Zaha's been missing. I don't know if he's back. But they really missed him against Leeds the other night. But I'm going to go for a 1-0 Palace 1. Man City against Spurs, 50/5. How do you see that going, Kevin? Keep a score down, please.
I'm going to say 1-8.
Really? Yeah, you think it could be? Do you think the Spurs record's going to come on to play again?
Yeah.
You know what? When I look at signs against Man City, I know Spurs have done well in the games, but they always seem to get a bit of luck against City. VAR and stuff always seem to be. I don't know what it is, but I think this is where the record might end. Though I think they're due defeat against City, and I think it could be tighter than maybe I'm panicking a bit, but it might be tighter than what I think. But I think City will have enough. I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 City 1. Brighton against Villa. This will be entertaining, after 8 o'clock. Two teams that like to get forward. Massive fan of Graham Potter. Massive fan. I love the way they play football, Brighton. If you look at every stat in the league, they're mid-table. Just probably a lack of quality where they're down there.
Well, I've heard rumors that he's one of the top coaches in England. To be honest, obviously I had a friend was on a Brighton and stuff like that.
When I say I'm not sure if he's seen eye to eye with him, but
no, but he says that he was one of the best he's ever worked with. So there was a respect with them. Obviously, he spoke really highly of Potter, and from what I hear, that he is first class and how he goes about stuff. So he's a great manager.
He's that type. I love him. If say Mourinho was to go in the summer and the Spurs maybe couldn't get a Rodgers or they couldn't get I would love to give him a chance. Honestly, I would love to see him get a chance. Just when when somebody talks, just look like they know it. There's just something about him. I'm always grasped. It's almost like the Pochettino thing when he was at Southampton. There was always something about him.
Yeah.
He obviously did surprise me how well he did at Spurs, but I think Potter's going to be a manager that teams are going to be looking at.
I'd say he'll be the next England manager. To be honest.
Really? You think so?
Could be a long time away, but I think so.
Moving on to Sunday, I'm not sure how many men will get the TV. They might have to watch PS I Love You instead. Hopefully, your women are a bit more understanding and they know that how much football means this.
Football will be on here no matter what.
Well, that's good, Kevin. You've got the right idea. Start off 12 o'clock, Southampton against Wolves. So this will be before you do the breakfast and all, Kevin. So Southampton against Wolves. How do you see that going?
Wolves are in a strange old period as well.
Actually, these two played the other night in the cup. I think Southampton went to Wolves and won. So
I'm going to go another 1-0 Southampton.
1-0 Southampton. Southampton they looked a bit tired, but they looked back to their best the other night. So, and Wolves just can't seem to score goals at the minute. And you almost feel one goal will be enough. But I'm going to go for a 3-0 Southampton 1. I think Wolves are really, really struggling. I'm going to go for 3-0 Southampton 1. Danny Ings is back on the score sheet too. So, no, I think Southampton are going to win this comfortably. West Brom against Manchester United. I think if this had been anybody else, you might have thrown a wee draw, but very difficult for you to go against United here, I think, without being accused of being biased.
2-0 United.
2-0 United. I think West Brom, it's not really worked with Sam Allardyce. I think Bilic was very harshly sacked.
They should never have sacked him.
No, it was a joke. And again, West Brom, I think they're doomed in terms of, it doesn't matter if Allardyce is obviously renowned for organising and defending, but they look worse. I don't know, there's not been no real positive reaction. Against Spurs last week, they were awful. I can't see any more than United won. I'm going to go for a 4-1 United victory. Do you know what? I think this is going to be the most entertaining game of the weekend. Arsenal against Leeds. I think this is going to be an absolute cracker. Not that the two teams I think are unbelievable, but I think Leeds are obviously caught the eye for the way they play football. And I think Arsenal in the counter-attack as well is going to suit them. So it could be a really good game. How do you see it going?
3-3.
3-3. I think it could be plenty of goals on it. Hype because Leeds are playing somewhere near back to their best. Arsenal have had a couple of rocky defeats.
There's goals
in this game. You know what? On form, I think Leeds look the team, but I have a funny feeling Arsenal. I'd love to say Leeds, but I have a funny feeling Arsenal's going to get back the autumn ways here. So I'm going to go for a 3-2 Arsenal victory. Everton against Fulham on Sunday night at 7 o'clock. Kevin,
2-0 Everton.
At that time. Everton against Fulham. 2-0 Everton. Everton's had a good run of form. I think that's Spurs victory. I'll give them a confidence boost. I'm going to go for the same, Kevin. 2-0 victory. Moving on to Monday. West Brom against Sheffield United. How do you see that going? Or West Ham against Sheffield United.
1-0 West Ham.
What do you think Moyes has done there?
Brilliant.
I don't know did you watch that game against? Go ahead.
I've always liked Moyes, to be fair. I think he was unlucky at United. And I think that he's, they took Everton where he took him and how he conducts his business and stuff like that. I think he's a good character, to be honest. And the players are buying on them now. So you can see whenever players buy into a good manager that they seem to do well. You know what I mean?
It wasn't a great game the other night against United. That was a really bad game.
It was awful.
It was awful, wasn't it? But West Ham have a chance of getting into European football this year. I'm sure they're going to be looking at that. And home to Sheffield United have turned a bit of a corner, playing a bit better. Someone tells me they're going to get a result too. I don't know. I just think they might get something. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Right.
Chelsea against Newcastle. They finish off the weekend. Chelsea are flying under this new manager.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on him? A lot of reports that he's a very good manager, and he's been called the professor of football. Stuff, a lot of tactical knowledge as well. I think one thing that comes against him at clubs, I think he's very similar to Mourinho. He can roll players up the wrong way, and when you fall out of favour, you don't really get a second chance. So obviously in the modern day game, that is a problem. I think if you're managing years ago, it's different. But are you a fan of Tuchel?
I am, but I always have that concern as well that, I think it, and I used to be like this as well. If a player did something to me, I would just cut them out completely. But you can't do it, especially with modern players now.
A lot of players now need that armour in the shoulder, don't they?
It's not even that. You need to be able to talk to them. You need to be able to forgive them and understand them. You know what I mean? To get the best from them, I believe. Look, that's just my opinion. But Tuchel seems a good coach, and he seems active in the training pitch, and he's heavily involved. You know what I mean? I love that about a coach. But I'd say it'll be a 4-0 one. That.
Oh, fuck, 4-0, right? I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chelsea victory. But they are flying. They're looking like the team that you might have to fight off for the top four. If he's come one on Saturday, he'll be dragging Leicester back down there. So it's very tight. How do you see the top four finishing? Just before I go, who would you go for top four? Who would it be? In order, if you can.
City first, obviously.
Yeah.
Pains me to say it, but I think United will get second.
I think they're the most consistent out of the rest of them. They'll just have an off eye.
And I'd say Liverpool will be third, with Chelsea fourth.
Oh, well, Leicester missing out. Oh, that'll be interesting. Hey, Kevin, thanks very much for coming on. Really enjoyed
thanks
that.
For
Up there with the top ones I've done yet. You can tell you know what you're talking about as well. First time, honestly, I felt really under pressure sitting here as well at times. So that's always good. Some really good guests lined up to be coming on. Might have a wee surprise feast towards the end of the weekend with an ex-footballer coming on. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But Kevin, once again, thanks very much.
Appreciate it, Gary.
Top man.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
See you soon.